What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Switch It Up podcast, episode 8. Today, we'll be talking about some hockey and giving our recap of what's been going on there. We'll be talking about some Formula One, and we got a couple other debates for you. Let's jump into it. The first thing I wanted to talk about is give a little update on what's been going on with our playoff takes and how terrible they were from last episode, and then give our takes for what's going on with the rest of the playoffs here. So first off, I want to talk about how the hell you got Colorado so wrong, sweeping them
Okay,
in
honestly,
four, buddy.
man. So here's the thing: you went 0 for 4.
I know.
I went 2 for 4. So I mean,
Yeah.
50%. I'll take it. I'll take it for the semis. But anyways, coming down to like my Colorado take, just the first game was so dominant, winning 7-1, I think it was, or whatever the score was.
Yeah. 7-1.
Where I just didn't see. Honestly, I doubted Vegas, and credit to Vegas, they proved me wrong. So they played their hearts out. They played better than Colorado, offensively, defensively. Fleury played a lot better. That's the one thing I don't understand is why they started Robin Leonard in game 1. Because I feel like if they started Fleury, it might have been a different, outcome, but it worked for them, right?
Yeah,
At the end of the day. So, the fact that Vegas came back down 2-0 and won 4 straight games and took it in 6 is just, they're a scary team, and maybe it's their year. Who knows?
Yeah, they're very good. I think what's crazy about Vegas is like if you watch the games, they're like such a shot forward team. They're like so offensive oriented. They're averaging something like 37 shots a game or something just insane like that. And it's almost as if regardless of how like defensive a game the other team tries to play against them, it's just a shots on shots kind of situation. And then their defense is so stacked with guys like Pietrangelo, Theodore, and then Fleury on the back end. They're just an insanely hard team to beat.
There's a extremely balanced team, and so and they're playing well together as well, which is also a huge benefit, especially come playoff time this late in the season.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess the only team that can really beat them is just themselves right now because of
Yep.
the way they're playing. The other kind of series that we both predicted wrong was definitely the Boston Bruins and the New York Islanders one. I think we both had Boston in 6, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think one of us had it in
Something like
7
that.
off the matters, but
But honestly, like New York's they're a low key, great team. So
yeah,
we'll see how far they can take
it's
it.
crazy. It's funny because when we first talked about the playoffs earlier on in the year, I kept telling myself, like even when they played Pittsburgh, I'm like, New York's always been such a tough team to play against. On paper, they don't have any like studs. Like maybe you take Barzell, but even then, it's like there's nothing exceptional about the New York Islanders except they play so good as a team. Like it's
I
just
saw.
incredible.
So we were talking about Zach Hyman last week, right? And like the type of player he is, right? Going in for pucks, all like the kind of dirty work that he'll do for your team. And New York has like, at least 5 of those like Zach Hyman type players on their team, which is what you need to kind of succeed the way they're succeeding right now so far. And their toughest matchup of the season so far is up against Tampa in the next round. So we'll see how that fares for them.
What bugs me about that too is like, here's the thing. Everybody's going to, if the New York Islanders somehow find a way to win the title, everybody and their grandmother is going to start bitching at the Leafs and being like, well, Lou did it for the Islanders. Well, no, shut up, because Lou got fired for the specific reason that he couldn't do it with the Leafs. So, and Kyle was the man to take over. So I don't want to hear this crap about how if Lou had just stuck around, they'd be doing better, because that is an absolutely BS false narrative. But
fair enough.
But I, give them credit for doing it.
No, for sure. I mean, it's worked out very well for them. The guys are playing exceptional hockey as well as a team. I think I saw something this morning where they've scored 46 goals so far, and they were the most out of all the teams that were in the playoffs at least. And then number 2 was Vegas. Number 3 was Tampa. Those were the top 3, rounding out the top 5, rounding out the top 3 for goals scored. And they're not a boring hockey team. Like, a lot of people are naming them a boring hockey team, but if you watch their series with Boston, it was great hockey.
No, they're not boring. The North Division's fucking boring is what is going on there.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. Anyways, let's move on to our next pick. We had Tampa. I had Tampa over Carolina, and someone took an upset Fair enough.
Yeah, what are
But
you gonna do? Had to do
yeah,
it. Had to
not
switch it
bad.
up on the podcast. But I mean, if you look at Tampa as a team right now, I don't think, like, I personally believe that they're like, I mean, I loved the Dougie Hamilton quote where he was like, "We lost to a team that's $15 million over the cap," which I thought was hilarious. But I personally think when it comes to Tampa, they're so dominant in so many areas. Like every team that's left kind of has their niche, and I feel like Tampa has everything. Like Montreal has goaltending, Tampa has goaltending that's arguably just as good. You
Yep.
know, Vegas has fantastic defense. Tampa has arguably just as good of a defense, maybe a
Yep.
little bit worse, but just as good with Hedman, Sergachev, and the
I
boys.
Yeah, I feel like the experience that Tampa has over the years of having deep playoff runs, except for 3 years ago or 2 years ago when they got swept by Columbus, um, that will help them go, probably to the finals and then see how they do fare against either Montreal or Vegas.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
think for that series, I believe it's Tampa and the Islanders, right?
Yeah. So
For that
Tampa Islanders, yeah.
for
Do
that
you want to take a
series,
pick on that?
I
Yeah.
do. Yeah, I really do.
Uh,
I personally think I'm going to take Tampa in 5 games.
okay.
We might see a 6 game, but I think
Okay.
Tampa is just way too overpowered of a team.
Honestly, I'm taking Tampa in 6. I just feel like New York can probably win 2 games.
Yeah,
Their first 2 home games, or at least one of them. Because the crowd in New York is
it's
just on another
crazy.
level.
Yeah,
There
it's one
it's
of the most insane sporting events
yeah.
stadiums.
I feel like with the North Division, if we did have a crowd as early on as everyone else, we would have seen more exciting hockey.
I
Probably would
agree.
have seen the same result, to be honest with you, but we would have seen a lot more exciting hockey
Yeah.
for sure. But it is what it is. Can't really blame the pandemic, knowing that we expected this coming into it anyways. So, credit to the teams or the cities that allowed fans and the way they were rolling out their systems and playing hockey. So it works very well for them.
Yep, I agree. What I think is the craziest thing, and we'll get back to our predictions in a second here, but what's nuts to me is if any team other than Tampa wins, it's
Yeah.
going to be incredible. Like the New
Yeah.
York Islanders fan base will go bananas. And what
Yeah.
a way to leave Nassau Coliseum, which is
Yeah.
arguably one of the most historic arenas in hockey. If the Canadians win, holy shit, they bring the cup back to Canada, a team that was never expected to go anywhere, let
Yeah.
alone win the Stanley Cup. And Carey Price gets a cup, which I think he thoroughly deserves after playing like
100%.
this.
Yeah.
And then so that would be absolutely bananas. And then Vegas, an expansion team. Like what are we doing right now? A team
Yeah.
that joined the league 3 years ago, and it's
Yeah.
just the most. It would be absolutely bananas. Credit to their entire organization and their coaching staff and their general manager for just a crazy job since they came into the league, and an electric fan base as well. That's going to be a hockey mecca coming up to see games in person.
All right. Well, let's move on to our last series. Montreal and Winnipeg. Sorry
Yeah.
to clown you, buddy, but someone took Winnipeg, I think in 6 it was. And his name starts with J, ends with Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it will. I mean, obviously, very similar to the Toronto series, you don't see the best player on the team or one of the top 3 main guys getting hurt in the first, or suspended in this case, in the first little while. Not to mention the friggin' freak injuries that Montreal has gotten. I don't want to say like lucky, but like the amount of players that have gone out in each series for Montreal is incredible. They have lost, like Winnipeg loses 4 guys actually. Toronto loses 2 of their main guys, Tavares and Muzzin. And like, I'm just wondering who's going to go down on Vegas now. Like, I don't know, but somebody clearly will.
No, I like the best player on the ice is Carey Price. I've been saying that for many weeks now. And even with their superstars, I still see the same result. I just like the way that they're playing right now, the way they're all so motivated, knowing that they have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You know, they're playing hockey with no pressure, and that's like the best situation for them right now. And with Price playing the way he is, we'll see how this series goes. But I have another elite take for this series.
Oh yeah, you think Montreal's going
Yeah.
to the final?
But before I do move on, I did say something in the last podcast.
Yeah.
If Winnipeg or Montreal did win, I would do something crazy
Yeah,
as
you
a
got
Leafs
that.
fan.
You got that. You got that jersey to
So
show us.
I'm gonna pull it out.
Oh my god.
So we got
That's the saddest thing. Like
we got something coming out here. Yeah, go
anybody
ahead.
who's listening to this and is a Leafs fan, Huz is about to pull out a Montreal Canadiens jersey. So I
Hey,
think your respect for his elite takes should go
honestly,
down a bar.
honestly, bro, it's a sick jersey. but here's a reveal. I'm gonna go up slowly. I
That
can't
is
see
the
myself now, but
saddest thing I've
here it
ever seen.
is.
If I ever see you
Okay.
put
I
that
said I
on,
said I said that. Well, I sent you a picture with it on.
terrible.
But you know what? I'll wear it to the keg tonight. How about that?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Anyways, so what's it called? I said that on the podcast. I said that I would buy either a Calfield or a Price jersey if Montreal was to win. I had my take in 6. I did not see them sweeping them. Credit to them. That was just awesome to see. But I said that if they win, no matter how many games, I'll buy a jersey just because I've taken them twice now and have was correct both times. So on my Instagram story, I said either Price or Calfield. You guys pick, and you know the fans, you guys all picked Price, and I couldn't be happier with the Price jersey.
I think
So
if you're gonna get a Montreal Canadiens jersey, that's the best
yeah,
one to get simply because of the Olympics coming up
yeah,
here.
exactly.
But that's an absolute joke of a jersey, and my respect
Yeah,
for you as a Leaf fan dropped
okay.
down quite a few bars.
I honestly, I'm just gonna wear it for the rest of the podcast now, so plenty for you to look at.
That's incredible. Um, as Huz proceeds to put on his Montreal Canadiens jersey, which is just a joke, if we're honest. How can you sit there and call yourself a Leafs fan, let alone a hockey fan, for switching from the best fan base in the league to the worst fan base in the league, or just the arch rival of your current team? It's just ridiculous. But anyway, moving on.
There it is, guys. Look
I
at
would
that
like
beauty.
I would it's just as I was
It's
telling
nice, bro. Come on.
the viewers, you can't switch
Like,
from the team you call yourself the greatest fan
I'm
of
not
to their
switching.
rival.
I'm not switching. Okay, you know who's my favorite hockey player ever?
Now I'm gonna say Carey Price, but it's
No,
Phil Kessel.
no, it's Phil Kessel, right? So once he left Toronto, I supported him in Pittsburgh. He
Uh-huh.
won back-to-back cups. Then he
Oh,
went to
that I
Arizona,
understand. I have no
right?
problem with the Phil Kessel
My
support.
favorite goalie is Carey Price after
It's a
Anderson.
joke. After Anderson, future free agent, maybe San Jose
Hey,
Sharks, Frederick Anderson.
honestly, I'll support Anderson wherever he goes. He's my guy.
Yeah, you're
But
gonna
Carey
support
Price,
him
he's
for the
been
Bennington Senators of the AHL.
sure. Honestly, does not matter. Even if he goes to or follows Martin Marince's route and plays in Czech League, I'll still support him. I don't
All
care.
right, I love to see it.
But Carey Price, he's been Canada's goalie for how long? He's won a couple, or did he? Yeah, he's won a couple gold medals with Canada as well. Gotta support the guy. Can't be hating on him.
Fair enough. You won't catch me in a Habs jersey. All I would say is you could have bought a Team Canada one, but I'll we'll deal with
I
it.
said Montreal. I mean, maybe in the
I
future
know,
we'll
I
see
know.
what next year's jerseys look like. But if I was to buy a Team Canada jersey, I told you I would get either Crosby or McDavid. So we'll see.
For
We'll see how
sure.
that goes.
I will also bring it back to predictions here. So
Yeah.
what is your take for the Vegas Montreal series?
So my take for Tampa and New York, I said in 6.
Yeah,
Same thing. I'm taking Habs in 6.
that's disgusting. That's an
Yeah.
absolute
Well,
joke to the
I'm
sport.
2 for 2.
I
Soon to be 3 for 3, and
it's gonna be
we'll
Vegas
go.
in 5.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not gonna be close. The
Okay.
Marc-Andre Fleury has been just as good, if not better, than Carey Price in the playoffs. He shut down a team like Colorado, which Habs have never seen a team like that. And on top of that, the Habs are now coming out of the North Division, which I think we both agree was the weakest division all year in the NHL.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely
And so
was the
they now
weakest.
have to play not just a good team in the West, but one of the best teams, if not the best team. So from them,
my take on it is like as much as I agree with what you're saying, it's Pacioretty versus Suzuki, Pacioretty versus the Habs, Suzuki versus Vegas, a team that just gave up on him after drafting him 13th overall in his draft
sure,
year.
but I don't think
Right?
they gave up
So,
on him. I think that they
well, I
did it
mean,
to make their
you
team
don't
what it
you
is
don't you
now.
don't trade a first rounder, you draft right like just
I
like
mean,
that.
if you trade a first rounder and you can get a guy like Pacioretty, you do it all day long because you don't know what Suzuki's going to turn into, but Pacioretty's a 35 goal scorer and 65 point guy in his prime.
Looking at the trade, I wouldn't say there's like a clear cut winner in the trade. I'd say both teams got what they wanted in that sense. But like there's Montreal's is playing with so much more motivation now.
I don't know, man.
Playing their team, playing a team with their ex captain on, right? Plus, like the young guys, they're a lot motivated to play a lot better now with a team like Vegas as well. So I can see them coming out in 6. And Price, he plays his best hockey under pressure, and
Sure.
with going up against Fleury, I'd love to see them both on Team Canada next year.
Yeah, I agree. We're seeing a different Carey Price, but I think in terms of this series, the Vegas aspect of it and the switch from divisions is going to be the biggest thing. I don't know if like a team like the Canadians can deal with just how deep Vegas is, and they haven't seen a team like Vegas the entire year. Vegas has Mark Stone, who I think has almost cemented himself as a top 10 NHL player if he wasn't already. The guy's one of the most
Mark
underrated
Stone is
players in the
trash.
league. What are you talking about? Have you watched the games?
Yeah,
He's
I have.
incredible.
Yeah, I
He's been
know. He
so
can't get
good.
he can't get more than 2 shots on net in a game.
Oh
So
yeah,
he's
because you made a
trash.
bet on shots against him and
He's
lost
he's trash.
in one game.
He's
He's
a
been
great two-way
incredible.
player. He's a great two. That's why he's nominated for Selkie, I believe, this year.
I
He's
would
a
argue
great
he's
captain, but he's still trash at hockey. Sorry.
he's for me he's one of the top 10 players in the league currently
No
because of
chance.
the playoffs.
No
Because of
chance.
the playoffs,
That's
he
that.
has been
No,
phenomenal. Like
no.
otherworldly. He single-handedly led Vegas over Colorado. Then you got to talk about how they got the best D pair in hockey in Pietrangelo and Theodore. That's like I don't even know if that's arguable that they have the best D pair in hockey. Maybe you talk about other guys like you could have talked about Carlson Burns, you could have talked about Hedman Sergachev, but I don't think you can even argue at this point that there's a D pair in the league with two studs as good as Theodore and Pietrangelo, which is crazy. You back it up with a guy like Fleury, who in the playoffs has a 1.9 something goals against average, which is bananas, and the best save percentage in the league, which is like, I just think as a whole, they're so deep, they're so good, and they're so much more talented than the Habs are that it's just great that they had a Cinderella story that the Habs get out of the North Division. Fantastic. They might get a banner out of it, but they're not going past a team as deep as Vegas. It's just not happening.
You said that about Toronto, and you said that
Oh,
about
I
Winnipeg.
listen, I
So
completely agree. I didn't foresee the injuries. I didn't foresee the suspension. I didn't foresee Winnipeg playing as terrible as they did, but they're not Vegas. They're not as deep as Vegas. Neither of them are. We weren't as deep as Vegas. Vegas is a different animal, and I think that
yeah, I mean,
totally gonna understand that.
like as great as Vegas is, they haven't played a team like Montreal either, though, right?
Oh,
Like you
they
got to
have
give.
Colorado. They're not as good as Vegas, or they're Colorado's
Well,
not as good as Montreal.
it's a completely different style of hockey. Is what I'm trying to say. Like Montreal is not as fast paced as Colorado at all, right? So it's a completely different style of play that they'll have to adjust to. It's like
Yeah, but that's where I think it goes wrong because Vegas is so offensively dominant. I think that it's going to be a defense versus an offensive battle. Montreal has been a team that can't score the entire year. They haven't been able to put pucks in the back of the net. And Vegas is a team that just dominates offensively. It's just going to be an absolute shit show in terms of shots on net. And unless Carey can stand on his head for 7 straight games or 4 in a row, it's not going to matter because they're just so dominant.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Like, I just my take on it for sure is Montreal, like the way they play, the style of play that of hockey that they play is just a team like Vegas with so much speed. It'll be a big adjustment for them,
Yeah,
right?
for
Especially
sure.
not playing them at all season, right? Um, so we'll see. I feel like Montreal's used to playing fast teams, having played Toronto 10 times, Winnipeg 9 times, and Edmonton 9 times throughout the regular season. So
Yeah.
they're used to that kind of play and they've adjusted to it. So Vegas should not be a problem. The only issue with Vegas I see with them is scoring on Fleury. And Fleury has let a couple bad goals this offseason, but I would say just only 2 really. But that's the biggest obstacle that they have to kind of come over. But same thing for Vegas as well. Their biggest obstacle they have to come over is Carey Price.
I think the biggest thing for me, anyway, that Vegas has to overcome, or sorry, that the Habs have to overcome is Vegas's defense because they have not seen defensive pairs like Theodore and Pietrangelo followed up by Alex Martinez. And on top of that, too, it's not only that they have to beat Vegas's incredible D, they then have to get past, I would say, the best goalie they've seen because Hellebuck did not play like Hellebuck. And then on top of that too is the sheer depth of scoring Vegas has is it's I would say, I mean, it's arguable that Colorado's may have been deeper, but there's not a team I would say that has a deeper scoring depth in terms of like 20 goal guys, 15 goal guys, constant physicality from a guy like Ryan Reeves. The depth that goes on from their roster is incredible, and they get scoring from their defense. So it's going to be something else to see what's going to happen there. And I think, I mean, we obviously differ in our opinions, but it's going to be interesting.
Today, Tampa and New York play their first game in a couple hours at
Yep.
3 o'clock, and then Montreal's tomorrow. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think I want to move on now. I want to give an update to all those listening. I don't know how many of you have watched Drive to Survive in Formula One, or even how many of you are keeping up with what is turning out to be my favorite sport, or what has quickly turned into my favorite sport. So last weekend we had Baku, which was basically a race in Azerbaijan. And what happened is it turned out to be one of the greatest sporting events I've watched. It was absolutely incredible. Essentially, what happened is that they start off the race and it's Max Verstappen all day long. He takes the lead. He's going. It's seeming like it's not going to be anything of substance. He goes out, and then around lap 36, Lance Stroll, the Canadian driver, has his tire break. And so essentially what happens is his tire blows up. It never happens in Formula One. It was a tire manufacturer error. The tire explodes. He tried to stay out longer. It didn't work out. And anyway, so as the race continues, Max is still ahead by a very wide margin. The Red Bull actually are 1 and 2. And then 3 laps from finishing, Verstappen crashes because his tire explodes. And so now this is just the biggest thing that's ever happened, because Verstappen goes from being in first and taking away a significant amount of points from Lewis Hamilton to now Lewis Hamilton moving up into second and Max being out of the race. So it's a complete flip-flop of the point system of who's going to determine the world champion. Max is kicking his tire because his tires obviously failed the same way. They exploded. And then, so anyway, we have this massive red flag. The race is completely restarted with 1 lap left to go. It's Sergio Perez, the Red Bull, in first, Lewis Hamilton in second, and Sebastian Vettel in Aston Martin, who's not even supposed to be close to the top, in third. And what happens is they restart the race with 1 lap to go. All Lewis has to do is finish, and Lewis Hamilton crashes in the first turn. And so he goes out. And now we have 3 guys on the podium who have never been on a podium this season, with Sebastian Vettel getting in second, Sergio Perez winning his first race for Red Bull, and Pierre Gasly from AlphaTauri, who's not even a competitive team, coming third and making it onto the podium, which was just the most insane, like, everything that could go wrong will go wrong race. And if you haven't started watching Formula One, I watched this one with my brother and my dad, who had both never seen a race before. And by the end, they were like, where can I watch this show? Because it's just that was the most insane sporting event I've ever seen.
Yeah, shit's rigged. Moving on. Honestly, like the show is actually a good show.
Yeah.
It's good to watch. Like, me personally, I wouldn't watch Formula One every weekend. I want to get up early to watch the race.
Understandable.
I'm just looking forward to season 4.
You'll get to see all this stuff.
Right? Yeah, so I get to see all of it later on anyway. So
it's true.
I'm okay waiting for it all. But yeah, honestly, if you haven't watched the show yet, it's on Netflix. It's a great watch. There's 3 seasons, I believe.
Yeah, 3 seasons.
10 episodes a season, about 45 minutes long each episode. But yeah, like it's something. I wouldn't say it's a new hobby that you could probably have, but it's a good show to watch in your pastime.
And I think it's absolutely a great hobby you should have. It's one of the best sporting events, and let us know what you think. I want to see if we can't get somebody from Formula One on the podcast at some point. I think that'd be really cool. So we'll see if I'll reach out. I'll reach out to some people and see what we can do there. Yeah. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about is another sport, and I actually want your take on this, Huz, because I think it's going to be interesting to see somebody who doesn't follow tennis a lot and what their take on this. It's absolutely one of the best sports. Yeah. So recently here,
it's a hobby. That's what it is.
Recently, about 2 days ago now, we had one of the greatest tennis matches ever between Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal at Roland Garros in Paris. And if you don't watch tennis, that happened to be one of the best matches ever played. So well,
bro. So I saw you tweeting about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, are these 2 like new players? So what is Roland Garros? Like, are they 2 players, or is it like?
So no, it's essentially there's 4 majors. If you're not familiar with tennis, there's Wimbledon, there's the French Open, there's the U.S. Open, and the Australian Open. Yeah. And French Open is the only tennis tournament or major of the year played on clay. So it's played on red clay. And what that means is that the ball kicks up a lot higher than it usually would on other surfaces. And what that allows you to do is it means spin is a lot more proactive. It helps players that hit with spin, and it really hinders guys who hit hard. So big servers, big forehands, that sort of thing.
And then
And
what are
so,
the what are the other surfaces that you play on? So I know there's clay, I know there's grass.
yeah, grass is at Wimbledon, and then the other two are a type of concrete called hard true, and it's
Okay.
basically just a very layered version of concrete with
Yeah.
different kind of substances that allows the ball to move a lot quicker.
So from you having that tennis background, what do you feel like, or personally for yourself, what's your favorite field to
So
kind of play on? And then what would you recommend, or what do you think an athlete, a professional's favorite is?
Well, so for me personally, I always really like the quicker services. So like the hard true of the U.S. Open, the growing up in Canada, that's kind of all we usually played on. I have played on clay quite a bit, and for me, it's like clay was always a rally boosting surface. So you would always have like a 30, 40 ball rally if you're playing a tournament on clay, which for me was terrible because when I was playing tennis competitively, I was a larger guy, so I could never keep up with the long rallies. So for me, I like the big serve, big forehand, and that was it. So for me, definitely the hard true. Um, but I think the in terms of like professionals, everybody kind of has their favorite. But what I wanted to talk about is how um, Rafael Nadal is just so dominant on the clay, and
Hmm.
how I think for me the hardest thing to do in sports, and this is what I want your take on, is the hardest thing to do in sports is to beat Rafael Nadal on clay in a 5-set match. His career record is 105-2 going into the last tournament, or going into the match 2 days ago. Djokovic managed to beat him in what obviously went down as one of the greatest matches of all time. And he's actually currently playing the final right now and getting demolished. Now, I'm never going to count Djokovic out. He could easily come back, and I think he probably will. But that match took so much out of him. And it seems to have always done that because Rafa Nadal has never been beaten at the French, and then the person who beat him has never gone on to win, which is
Hmm.
crazy. But what I want your take on is I want your opinion on if you think there's something harder to do than that. But what I think is, yeah, we'll start there. Do you
So I
think
wouldn't
there's a harder
say
thing to do in sports?
um I wouldn't like it's hard to kind of explain because each sport has its own variation of toughness
Right.
in terms of like beating someone, or like if you look at tennis, like what you just said right there, right? Or if you look at Formula One, right, beating Lewis Hamilton in a straight race, right? There's no chance you're doing that.
Yeah, it's true.
And then if you look at UFC, uh, in
Yep.
Khabib's division, like there's no one that will beat Khabib right now
Yeah,
if
it's
he
true.
was to fight again, right? Same thing with boxing, Floyd Mayweather, right? 51 and 50 and 0.
Yeah.
Right. So there's each sport has its own kind of variation towards
Right.
um who the greatest person is and how hard it is to beat that person. So I wouldn't say it's easy to compare, not knowing how
For
hard
sure.
tennis is, right? So
Yep.
I can't be like, oh, no, like Connor McDavid is the fastest guy in the NHL.
For sure.
It's the hardest thing that you can, like, that's the hardest thing is to do is in the world is to beat him in a
Yeah.
foot race, basically. So I can't really say that not knowing tennis's background. So
Right.
like to each their own, I guess, right?
So well, here's the
That's
thing, right? This
yeah.
is a couple stats I'll throw out just to make my case as to why I think it's the hardest. So Rafael Nadal has played the French Open the last 15 years, right?
Hmm.
Of those 15 years that he's played it, he's won it 13 years. He won it for 8 years straight.
Yeah.
Then withdrew because of an injury, which they counted as a loss against Robin Soderling. You could tell he was destroyed. He tried to play, he couldn't.
Hmm.
So that was a loss that he had.
Okay.
Then he went on and won it for another 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
then he loses once to Djokovic
Yeah.
in a match where I don't know why he even played because
Right.
he wasn't at the level. He was coming off an injury. He wasn't at the level where he should be playing.
Yeah.
And so his career record was 105-2 going into that last match where he loses.
Yeah.
And it's like when you play a set of tennis against Rafael Nadal on clay, it's almost like you have to be so perfect to the point where we're playing in what is arguably, you without watching tennis would
Hmm.
not know this, but we're playing in an era where we have the greatest three tennis players in the history of the sport in Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic.
Yeah.
And Nadal has been so dominant on clay that
Hmm.
Federer only managed to win the French Open one time in the year where Nadal withdrew because of an injury. He never
Right.
came close in any other year. And Djokovic has only managed to win it the one time in the
Yeah.
year where Nadal was coming off the injury and he managed to beat him in straight sets. And we're talking in a 21-year career span for these guys. And they've
Right.
managed to win the tournament one time, which
See,
is insane.
if I was to put something down and say like this is the toughest thing to do in the world in terms of sports,
Yeah.
hands down for me it would have to be beating Khabib in his division.
Yeah, I mean, I think saying that he hasn't lost is something crazy, and I think that for
But
sure.
it's not even the fact that he hasn't lost. It's that he hasn't been hit. Like he hasn't been cut. He hasn't like any like none of his fights have been close.
Al Iaquinta, he took him to 5 rounds and
Yeah, but
won a
still,
few rounds.
it wasn't a close fight though.
It wasn't the Khabib dominated fight that it should have been. It was like a strange one where people didn't understand like why it went down that way. But yeah,
Right. Like
nobody
no one's
has
come close to
scared
beating
him.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no one scared him. And
Yeah.
I think while that's true, I think the only difference is that Khabib's fought in the UFC. I believe it's 11 times. He's 29-0 in his martial arts
Yeah.
career, but he's fought 11 times.
11 times. Yeah.
Yeah, whereas until 2 days ago, Nadal was something like he had played 111 matches or 107 matches on clay and lost 2 times. So I think if Khabib, obviously you can't compare the two. They're not.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just not. It's a completely different atmosphere in each sport. Like you can't
Yep.
compare the toughest things to do in the world when it's completely different.
I agree. It's impossible to compare. I just think that in terms of things to do right now on sports, you have to be so perfect and in such a way, like if you go back and watch those highlights, even as somebody who doesn't watch tennis, you think to yourself after almost every point, how on earth could somebody possibly do what they're doing? Which is just the epitome.
Yeah. Okay. So to kind of put it this way, where if you had to pick one or the other,
yeah,
and if you lost, you basically die.
Yeah.
Right. Who are you taking? Are you taking a match with Raphael or are you fighting Khabib?
That's what's crazy is I'm a tennis player and I think I got a better chance at beating Khabib than I do.
There's no chance. You're not even touching Khabib.
I couldn't get a point on Nadal and clay. I couldn't get a point. To think that you could beat Nadal in a 5-set match, I know going in.
Bro, do you think you can go toe to toe with Khabib?
No, I don't. I don't. But here's my logic, right? Going into a match with Nadal. No. Here's my logic. This is a great question.
Like you're dying, but it's like you're asking for a death sentence on top of you dying already.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, right, here's my logic to this. And I think a lot of people would actually agree with my point here. And I think you might even. So Nadal going into a thing, if it's for death, right? Going into a match with Nadal, I know for a fact that I have zero chance of winning. Zero.
Okay.
Right? I know that there is a 0% chance that I'll win because I know what Nadal can do on clay. I know my skill level of tennis, and I know I have a 0% chance. Now, if we're talking about getting a point over a 5-set match or even a game, then I might take my odds there. If we're talking about beating Nadal on clay, I think there's 2 people who've ever done it, and I'm never going to win.
So let's just put it this way.
One second. If I fight Khabib, I know for a fact I'm going to lose, right? I'm not going to win. But I do know that there is a 0.00001% chance that I knee him in the jaw and he goes out, right? It's not going to happen. I know I'm not going to win. I have a 0% chance.
Okay,
but I'm saying there's a better chance I land a punch on Khabib than there is I beat Nadal over a 5-set match.
Okay, so how about this? So it's the same thing. You're dying at the end of it.
Right.
But you get to pick, right? If you can get 1 point on Rafael Nadal, or land a punch on Khabib.
Oh, I'll take the point against Nadal all day long. But what I'm saying is, like, in terms of, I know that in the UFC, there have been instances where guys break their legs, right? Checking a kick or doing something, or even like falling back awkwardly, right? There's a better chance. I understand, but I'm saying
breaking your leg.
I know, but I'm saying that there's a better chance that a freak injury happens to Khabib than there is that I have a chance to beat Nadal in a 5-set match. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Like it would be like for you, do you think you have a better chance of beating the world's best cricket team with the Dolphins or or landing a punch on Khabib? You're not going to beat the best cricket team.
I would just fight with Khabib. And if I know I'm dying at the end of it, I'm picking Khabib only because then I can say I was in a ring with Khabib.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you won't be able to say it because you'd be dead, but yeah.
Well, it'll be in my statement after.
Exactly.
After
it will. Yeah. I know, but that's the only thing is know, it would be like me and you and a couple of our buddies going to play Team Canada in hockey and being like, if we lose, we die, or we face Khabib.
Like
we're not going to win.
So,
yeah, in Shell, it would just be you yelling at us for not scoring. That's what it would be.
I'm an elite goaltender in Shell. If you guys want to rip some games, hit us up. We had to retire our team though, right?
Yeah, we did.
My Rinson fan club had to retire it.
Very
because
disappointing.
he's not part of the lease anymore. So back to we went from Division 1 all the way down to Division 10. Humble
If
brag.
any of you have any NHL team names for us, please let us know. But there is one last thing I wanted to talk about, and I want somebody who's never played tennis or like doesn't know the sport to answer this. And so I'm gonna give you
So me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you some statistics here, and I want you to tell me. Now, obviously, you're not gonna have a bias, but bias aside, I want your take on this. So it's the greatest tennis player of all time. Now, I tweeted out to Andy Roddick. Those of you who don't know who Andy Roddick is, he's a former world number one.
Is he Canadian?
He's American.
He's American.
But
Okay.
he's a former world number one tennis player. My hero. He's actually that picture right there. He's one of my heroes growing up. And I tweeted out to him, and I'm like, do you think if Nadal loses to Djokovic in the French Open, it changes the greatest of all time debate? And he said there's too many variables, but it would absolutely help Novak's case.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here are the stats I'm going to give to you, and I need you to pick who you think's the greatest of all time when it comes to tennis, right?
Okay.
So usually everybody who thinks tennis, they're going to say Roger Federer, but it's actually changed quite a lot in the last few years. So right now it stands that Djokovic has 18 Grand Slams. He's currently playing in the final. We'll say he's at 19 because I do think he's going to win. So let's say he's at 19 Grand Slams. Currently he's at 18. He has 9 victories in the Australian Open final and 0 defeats. So he's won 9 Australian Opens in 9 years and had never lost in the final, but a total of 19 slams, right? He's 34 years of age.
Okay.
You have Rafael Nadal, who's won 20 Grand Slams, so one more than Djokovic. He's 13-0 in the French, so he's never lost. He's won the French 13 times. He's won the U.S. Open 4 times, the Australian Open 1 time, and Wimbledon twice, and he has 20. And he's 35 years old. Then you have Roger Federer, who's 39 years old. Mm-hmm. His last Grand Slam was, I believe, 2016. 2018 was his last Grand Slam. He's won 6 Australian Opens, 1 French. He's lost in the French Open 4 times, 8 Wimbledons, which is his best surface by far. Now, people's debate was that Roger dominated Wimbledon and he had the most Grand Slams, so he's the best, right? And he was so dominant for so long. Right. My thing is Djokovic has more Australians than Roger has Wimbledons, and he's 1 Grand Slam behind Roger. He's also 6 years younger than Roger. Nadal has 13 French Opens, so that's 5 more than Federer has Wimbledons, and he has the same number of Grand Slams, and he's 4 years younger. So the question becomes, out of that, who do you think has the best chance of going down as the greatest of all time?
Yeah.
And do you think that Fed probably do you think his time as the greatest of all time is over, seeing those stats?
Honestly, like I do see his time being over, only because of the way the other 2 guys are playing right now.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to catch up. Just to kind of confirm, that Grand Slam is winning all 4 titles.
So no, a Grand Slam is one of the 4, right?
Okay.
So they've won 20, 20, and 19 Grand Slams.
Yeah. So I mean, if we're judging just based off of Grand Slams alone, like it's one off. Right, like you can easily catch up, and it's Djokovic, right? Djokovic, he was at 19, or will be at 19.
Yep, exactly.
So, and he's the youngest of the 3.
He is.
Right. So there's no way he doesn't catch up and go past that number and become the greatest of our generation. Right?
I completely agree, and I think that the big thing too is that what Roger was never able to do, that people always criticized him for, was beating Nadal at the French. Djokovic has now done it twice. And if he adds a second French Open title, I don't think there's any debate that you can have that Fed is better than Djokovic. And I do think Djokovic has enough years left where he will go down by far as the best. It'll be up to him and Nadal. But anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. I think we should probably end it off here for this week. We'll have a bunch of more stuff coming at you next week. I have a very exciting documentary I want to talk about the flat Earth community, which is going to be interesting. So keep an eye out for that one. And we'll see you next week.